Welcome to the Phoenix Suns Solar Panel Podcast or show here on YouTube if you are watching us live. My name is Tim Tompkins. Joining us, Mr. Let's go with Dave King first. Dave King.
What? Me? Why do I go first? Why'd you
special.
make me go first?
Age before beauty and intelligence, Dave.
And we could not forget.
Is that why you always go first?
Yes, usually. Would you like to do that again, Tim? I didn't hear my own name.
Yeah. And we shall not forget, least but not last, Greg.
Oh,
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
No, it did not. Okay. Per usual, we make
you
no
can
sense.
tell this is going to be a really, really great show today. We can't even get the intro good. Sorry, Tim, we fucked it up.
It's okay. All right, guys. So let's get right to it. Taking a look out in the West, right? The Suns now 21-31 for 12th. Total of 5 games back from the 8th seed. Obviously coming off a really nice win against the Rockets. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, we are recording on Saturday before the Suns play the Nuggets. Seems like they're kind of losing grip, though, of this 8th seed. Not quite out of the hunt. How are you guys feeling about any playoff chances for this team right now?
Well, they never actually had a grip on it, so it's tough to lose said grip.
This is a playoff team waiting to happen.
They never no, they were never actually holding that 8th seed real tight there. All right, let's just
they
say
were
that.
In the first few weeks of the season. Yeah. Dang it.
Okay, so since October they've lost
grip.
When
there was 70 games to go, they had
seed.
A grip.
I do not feel it takes Herculean effort right now from Booker and Oubre, or Booker and Ayton, or Ayton and Oubre. I mean, to get a win, because they are so depleted in terms of their bench and in general, that I think it's very difficult for these guys. Amazing game against Houston. They came out and both Devin Booker and Kelly Oubre stuck it to the Rockets, beat them at their own game, and major props to both of those guys. They played unbelievable. I just think that there's not enough depth right now, and if they don't start getting guys back, it's just going to be too much for them to really close that 5-game gap. I hope it happens, but I just don't see it without
I'm joking.
bench.
They're not going to be able to close that 5-game gap. They're really not. They don't. Not only do they have the depth issues, they also have the learning how to win in close games issues, because when your best 3 players are Kelly Oubre Jr., Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton, those guys have never been counted on to close out big games in their lives before. And so this is a learning year. Look, I was as frustrated as everybody else when the Suns didn't make a single move at the trade deadline. But I can see James Jones's patience in this. This was always supposed to be the learning year. They were always supposed to win around 35 games. They were always supposed to go into the summer knowing better what they need for next year. Now, we think we know what they need for next year, but they really need all 82 games, especially when DeAndre Ayton was suspended for 25 of them. They really need to see these guys progress and see how far they can go with this group this year, and then supplement the team with a little bit more sobriety going into the summer in the right way. This was a slap together team over last summer. It really was. I mean, they turned over everybody but 4 players. And it was just to see what would happen with this team. It's obviously a higher floor than they've had the last 4 years. And Devin Booker, I mean, this is new territory for most of these guys, the guys who've been here anyway. And they need to learn what the territory looks like. They need to learn how to keep their cool in tight games. Just last Friday, they had a 7-point lead. Against the Thunder. They had a 7-point lead with 4 minutes to go against the Thunder. Could have won that game, but then all of a sudden they went like over 1,000 in the rest of the game. Played really well. They know how to close out. If Friday night's game had been close, James Harden would have known how to close out the game. So this has always been supposed to be a learning year. They were always supposed to run around 35. We were going to be happy with 40, excited for 40. But Tim, that was a very good opening question. Are they going to get back to no, they're not going to get back into playoff contention. Their schedule is still really hard. Their experience is still really low. And their health, as Greg alluded to, is still really bad. We can just end this show right there. That's all.
Is there a point in which, coming down the stretch of the season, the Suns should strategically rest?
No
No.
tanking. Look, getting the stench of losing off of a franchise is difficult, right? I'll tell you a little story. My father-in-law a couple of years ago had some turkeys in the back of his car to go donate.
Your father-in-law tanked for you?
No, but forget. He left 2 turkeys that he was going to donate in the back of his car. Forgot they were there, and then he and my mother-in-law left for 2 weeks on a vacation, right? You know what happened to those turkeys? Those bad boys rotted in the back of that car. And no matter what they've done, they've torn that car apart. The stench doesn't go away. That is losing. That is a decade of losing. That stench clings to a franchise. And tanking at all this year is an asinine move because A, the draft is terrible, and B, you cannot teach these guys and reinforce to these guys that losing is the way that you should improve at this point. You need to do everything you can to win every game the rest of the way because you're not going to change the culture by talk. You're going to change it by action on the court, and winning is the only way to do that.
Some of this season is all about Devin Booker. Devin Booker has still, because he hasn't had a chance yet this year, he still has not played a meaningful game after the All-Star break in his career. I think the Suns need to go for meaningful wins in the second half. They need to go for knocking other teams down a rung. And yeah, maybe push for that 8th seed. I just don't trust that the Suns can close out the 8th seed, but they should absolutely push for it. Every single game. They should be counting how many games back they are. 5 games back as of Saturday morning before the Nuggets game. They are still in striking distance, of course, and they should treat the rest of the season as if they're in striking distance. All I was saying is I don't think they'll get there. But I think they should be pushing for it all season, all the way through 82 games. And that'll be the most exhilarating thing that Devin Booker's been through in his career. He needs to know what 82 games looks like. He needs to know what coming in hard every single game looks like. He needs to know how that feels. And a lot of the guys that were acquired last summer, even though half of them are hurt right now, but a lot of the guys who were acquired last summer are ones who have second half playoff, pushing for a playoff seed and getting it experience. We just need to get some of these guys back. I mean, Jesus, it's amazing. Even Friday night in that win, the Suns almost had to play 2 of their best players the whole game because there weren't enough healthy players to go around. I mean, there was in the fourth quarter, Cam Johnson, Ty Jerome were out there, both of them moving weird. I mean, Ty Jerome always looks like he's holding in a fart. Somebody tweeted when he runs, and he still looked like it on Friday night, even more so.
That is the kind of analysis you get here on the Sun Solar Panel.
He looked like he was laboring on a tight calf, like I would be after a hard workout and a really tight muscle the next day, walking around going, oh, he looked like he was struggling. Cameron Johnson, his timing was clearly off. He moved pretty well, though, but his timing was clearly off. But Monty didn't want to play him the whole game. And then Ricky Rubio is clearly hobbling through he's refusing to put himself on the injury report because he knows the Suns need him desperately. And he's hobbling through these games. We're giving a lot of crap to Ricky Rubio, but man, I'd like to see one of us do what he's doing. And
can I chime in on Ricky Rubio?
A bad ankle. Yeah, go ahead, please, Tim.
The best on-off numbers for players on the team so far, or I should say the best net rating for players, right, with the most positive point differential for on-off. Yeah. Ricky Rubio leads the team at 7.7 points, ahead of Devin Booker at 6.9. So for as much crap as everyone gives Ricky Rubio, who, to your point, is clearly injured, is clearly playing through it, he has the biggest positive net rating of any player on the team.
Yeah, look, it's painful to watch him play sometimes, and certainly painful to watch him try to shoot, which has nothing to do with his injury. For the most part, he doesn't have any separation or lift, but I know it is. But he is effective out there, and the Suns are effective when he's out there on offense, and that is not happening when Elie Okobo is running your team. I tweeted last night. Somebody said Ricky Rubio is noticeably hobbling to the bench, and then he came back out after the timeout. I'm like, Ricky Rubio saw his backup and he turned around. I mean, he knows he needs to be out there.
The Suns are also 3 points better per 100 possessions on defense when he's on the court.
Absolutely.
They need him to win. I mean, we saw it when he was actually out. This team is significantly worse. They revert back to some bad habits that we saw in previous years when Ricky Rubio is not out there. This team this offense is built to require a floor general, and unfortunately, his backups just aren't that.
Can I point out one bit of sunshine? We don't have it on our show notes, so I don't think I'm going out of place here, but we're talking about the Rockets game. One really, really good thing that I saw is Monty Williams has spent the entire year saying, look, I just want these guys to be comfortable. I want them to take comfortable shots. I want them to take the shots that make them most feel best about themselves. And unfortunately, a couple of guys on this team, a few guys on this team, like those mid-range shots. You know why? Because other teams want them to take those mid-range shots so they feel best, because you have less players around you trying to knock the ball out of your hands when you're at 15 feet away. Devin Booker's a little bit been so good this year, but he's been a little bit less reliant on the three than we wish he would be. And a lot of these guys are running themselves off the three-point line to take a less contested two. Well, Monty finally said he went to his team Friday morning after the trade deadline. He said, look, guys, this is getting ridiculous. You've got to take three-pointers. You've got to take more threes. That's just the way this game is played. You've got to go for 3 points instead of 2 points when when you can. And they took 10 threes in that first quarter, and they took only 31 for the game, but part of that is because they spent half the game with their bench out there, and their bench is still allergic to taking shots. But that was a really good sign. Monty is finally actually pushing his guys to take better shots than just the ones they're most comfortable with. It's a process, and I don't think that's a failing on Monty's part all year. I mean, he's just going to coach the way he's going to coach, and the way he's going to coach is to get you confident and then try to tweak you into better things. They took a bunch of threes on Friday, and that was really good to see, and I hope that continues, because you just need guys to actually focus on the right shots.
The key is they made a bunch of threes, too, not just taking them.
The Suns are 20th in three-point attempts per game at 31.4 and 22nd in three-point percentage at 34.9%.
Right, and to your point, Tim, so that is exactly where they are. They're 20th in attempts, but if you break the season into a couple of parts, they were 10th in attempts through Christmas or so, through early to mid-December. And they've been last in attempts since the 1st of January. And that was pointed out to them by Monty Williams saying, God, you guys, come on. We can't be 30th in the league. We have shooters. Just take the shots. So they're going to get back into that 30-plus range every game. And I think that's going to be fun to see for fans. And might generate some more wins.
So Kelly Oubre Jr., big night, obviously, against the Rockets, his second bobblehead night. By the way, if anyone was at that game and wants to sell me a bobblehead, please.
I have one
on Twitter. Jim. You want to sell it to me? Please.
What are you going to do for me?
I'll Venmo you $25. How about that?
No, I don't want a dime. I'll give it to you next time I see you.
No, because that can be in like a year. Ship that, or somebody watching or listening, ship it to me. I'll Venmo you some cash. Anyway, Kelly Oubre, though, career high 39 points, which, by the way, the Suns' shirt of the night for that game, absolute fire. What do you think of his career night, though? Obviously, he was hitting the three. He was really effective in the first quarter. But did we see anything different out of him that seems like it could be a little bit more sustainable than just him running into 3 or 4 guys right at the rim, hoping that he gets a shot in?
Since January 1, Kelly Oubre is hitting 39% of his threes, and that's even with him dealing with that concussion that he got, and missed all of his threes for several games after he got back. Kelly is doing great. So what's really stepped up is that he's become even better in the things he's really good at. He's really good at attacking the rim, and he's really good at taking catch and shoot threes. He talked about it last night after the game because he did another one of those shot clock winding down, game clock winding down end of quarter threes. And so somebody asked me, he's like, does that remind you of when you were growing up, in the on your driveway and counting down 3, 2, 1 and taking that last second shot? He's like, absolutely. That's what I think about every time. And he literally dribbled himself into an end of clock 3 at the end of the third quarter to put the Suns up 97-73 over the Rockets. And he's got at least half a dozen of those this year. So he was having fun, and he's feeling good, and he's taking the right threes. He's taking the shots he's good at. And he's figuring out how to be a little bit less predictable around the basket because he went through a period of time where he was getting a shot block because they all knew where he was going to go when he was driving to the basket. Everybody knew. We all knew exactly where he's going to end up. And so he's been able to adjust to that, and I really think that's great. I love watching Kelly Oubre play. It's got the energy of a tsunami, and the kiss of a poppy. So I think he's just awesome.
I want to throw this out here. Is he playing so well that he's going to price himself out of the Suns' range? Because the reality is there's one more year left on his contract. Then you're going to have to negotiate with him again. You got a pretty good hometown deal at $15 million.
Man, I'm just going to start calling you Seattle because it's always raining on Greg Island.
I'm just asking because I have been thoroughly impressed with what he's been able to do lately, and that's just that was part of the reason his name came up this week. And
don't play that well, Kelly. We can't afford you.
I'm not saying that we don't want to play that well. There's just things. If we're not talking about a playoff team, we got to talk about how do you build that playoff team and how do you build the future.
He's under contract for 18 months.
For one more season.
We're good.
All right, fine. Okay, all right.
God,
I wish I could take that sunshine enema that you got this week, Dave, and get a dose of that myself without the hose up my backside. But
what?
That's what an enema is, Tim.
I know. I was just thinking, how did this conversation get to here?
I followed. I didn't take it up the back.
I responded to one thing on Twitter. I come back, and all of a sudden, you guys are talking about enemas and swallowing.
We talked for 42 seconds about how good Kelly Oubre is, and all of a sudden, Greg's talking about 18 months from now when we can't afford him.
I was just
God dang, Greg, just appreciate what we have.
Tim's quote should be our tagline: "The sun's solar panel. How did we get here?"
Better than feel free to unsubscribe.
No, it's right on par with that.
No, nobody unsubscribe. This is must-watch YouTubing and must-listen potting.
It's right on par with feel free to unsubscribe.
I have been disappointed about something over the last few games. I mean, of you guys, but I've lowered expectations, so the disappointment's less when it comes to that. I really wanted to see roughly 35 minutes of Jalen Lecque every night for the rest of the season. And after being teased with it, I haven't seen him again. And it's been really, I want to watch Jalen Lecque play basketball, regardless of the Suns winning or losing.
There are free streams to watch the G League team. And what's going to happen is you're going to see once a week a really, really good play, and the rest of the time he's a bench guy on a G League team that's 8-52 or something like that. So
man, the guy's a hustler.
He's not quite ready to be prime time.
Well, who would have guessed an 18-year-old isn't ready for prime time?
Right, you can watch him in summer league, Tim. Come out to Vegas in July, and we'll be there to watch the Jalen Lecque show. Oh yeah.
Tim's not allowed back in Vegas, so
you can grow a mustache so nobody recognizes you.
That Vegas trip cost me like $10,000, man. I am not
going
to Vegas. Hey, not going back to Vegas.
STD cures cost a lot these days. Health insurance isn't what it used to be. So
also paying off the girl to not sue him for something. I don't know where the hell did you get that? Jesus.
I love that every time he brings it up, that number gets larger, too. It just keeps expanding.
I might not have been honest at the beginning with how much I spent.
I might not have been honest. Did
was
y'all
bad
hear
enough.
that?
Look,
Who's been following this Vegas story? We're up to over 10 grand now because he's probably not even been as clear yet.
Yeah, Tim,
well, it was a really good chance I didn't actually want to add the two credit card numbers together.
Tim would like you to donate to the show because Tim makes bad life choices. All right.
Apparently in Vegas, I can't handle myself.
So-
Not the point. The
oh.
point is we should be getting at least 15
You even
minutes.
shared a room with Greg.
I don't think we're at
Jalen
that point
LeCue.
yet, though. I think once it's pretty clear that you're officially too far back of the 8th seed, then maybe the LeCue experiment as the backup point guard and telling Javon Carter
Guys, he's not a point guard.
taking a seat. I know, but just giving him minutes at that at those backup guard spots. Maybe that's when you do it. But right now, I think that's signaling they're waving the white flag a little too much when you're still within shouting distance there. And I don't think playing LeCue is equal to tanking. I just think it's a different kind of understanding of what you have with some of your young guys. And I would like to see him play more, but not until you're pretty safely out of that 8th seed, because it is clear he's going to make a lot of mistakes while he's out there, but there will be moments that are wow moments as well.
You guys ready for stat of the week?
Stat of the week.
Stat.
And this right here is all for context because obviously we aren't the only ones on Suns Twitter, Suns Reddit, Suns Facebook groups, Suns fans freaking out every time there's a loss or an unfortunate string of losses. It doesn't really matter. The Suns last year had the 28th best offensive rating at 105.9 points, the 29th worst defensive rating at 115 points per game. They were 10-point difference there, right? This season, 16th best offensive rating at 110.2 and the 17th best defensive rating at 110.9. I realize that this team loses some games that you wish that they wouldn't lose, but I think that we're not putting into context the kind of growth that this team has had. And frankly, you don't go from 19 wins to 50. And I just think it's important that we all realize how much better this team has gotten this year.
Yeah, I've seen a few comments where this team looks just as bad as last year. No, you're forgetting last year. I mean, really, seriously, pull up a game from last year, a full game, not just highlights, but pull up a full game from last year, and you can tell the difference. And this is not against Igor. I thought Igor was a good coach. I liked Igor. He just had bad players. There's better players on this team, but also Monty Williams is a better coach, and he has a better coaching staff. They have a scheme. Look, the Suns have 5 20-plus point wins this year alone. 5 20-plus point wins. They haven't had that many 20-plus point wins since, who wants to guess it?
2010.
Yes.
And
they haven't had that. They haven't had more than 4 20-plus point wins in any season since 2010. This team can play really well, and the scheme is really good. They generate a lot of open threes. They generate a lot of points. They just haven't been making them because the players aren't quite good enough to make a bunch of those threes yet. And they're not quite sure of themselves yet in the first year in Monty's system. And their defense, everyone says their defense is awful, horrible. It is. It looks bad sometimes. It definitely looks bad sometimes. But having a mid-pack defense is an incredible turnaround. We haven't had a mid-pack defense since the mid-2010s when the Suns had the Morai and those guys on the team, and they were playing well under Jeff Hornacek. Let's just celebrate how good this team is. And yes, and they're 14th in net rating too, because while they're below the midpoint, slightly below the midpoint in offense and defense individually, they're 14th in net rating. They just aren't winning the close games, and that's because they're very young, and sometimes too many guys are injured or out.
Not just that. There's also been a lot of bad and not to blame things on the refs, but there have been a lot of calls in the last 2 minutes of games that have been blatantly wrong and have not favored the Suns.
That's true. The Suns have their own handful of games that were unfortunately decided by questionable calls. If we had some kind of artificial intelligence system, I mean, really, we're kind of advanced now, and we should have some kind of automated. If the NFL can come up with an automated thing that tells you when you get a first down, there should be something that actually, analyzes real time fouls and goaltends and things like that.
How about just when a coach challenges it, actually overturning the call to the right call? That'd be a nice improvement, at least, because most of the time, even these challenges, they're not getting the call right after they get a second look at it. That's another problem.
The refs in that Detroit game, holy shit, dude! Like, I don't like to just criticize refs. They have a really hard job, but it was blatant.
But look, part of that is reputation. The Suns haven't earned, and it's unfortunate that this is part of the game, but it's human bias, and that's what happens when you have human referees. The Suns have been so bad for so long that getting the benefit of the calls just is not something that has been earned.
This is all absolutely true, but we can't just blame the refs. The Suns have made some boneheaded plays at the end of games. That game against San Antonio in Mexico City without Devin Booker, there was a couple of boneheaded decisions by Suns players that cost the game. It wasn't the refs. I mean, look, there's a lot of things that are conspiring to make the Suns 21-31, despite having the record and the differential and all that should put them more like 25-26 wins instead of 21 wins, and that would put them right in the thick of the race. It just happens. The Denver Nuggets a few years ago, they were losing close games. They got better because they stayed together, and they grew together into being a team that could trust each other. I love that one of our listeners and fellow podcast hosts from another the Fanning the Flames, Justin, didn't think the phrase sunshine enema would be one of the first things I'd hear this morning, yet here I am.
Welcome to the show, Justin.
So, welcome to the solar panel. This is what you get.
Look, I agree, Dave and Tim. This team is, I'll go as far to say, significantly better than last year's team. They have improved in multiple ways. Devin Booker has grown yet again. You look at his efficiency, how he's able to get his teammates involved, even his rebounding, his effort on defense. He's improved. Kelly Oubre has taken a step forward. Depending on the night, DeAndre Ayton has improved over his rookie season as well. This feels like a team that is close to being good, and I think that's what makes this tough right now, because the 8th seed is sitting right there. It is fairly wide open, probably the widest open we're going to see the back half of the playoffs in the Western Conference for a long time, in a way that nobody expected it this year, right? And they're so close. And it's just little things that are preventing them from being right in the mix with it, and that's what I find so frustrating. It's not the fact that this team is going to wind up probably right about where we expected it. I mean, I was the king of 32 to 35 wins, pounding on the table, even when they were 7-4. And saying that would be good. And I still feel like that's a win. That's a good thing if this team winds up in that range. But knowing that 4 or 5 more wins on top of that potentially could put you in that 8th seed is the thing that frustrates me so much, because that it was there, that it still is kind of there. And obviously injuries are part of it. But I'm not going to give the team a pass on that, right? You let Aaron Nelson go, all right? And we can argue whether Aaron had lost some of what had made that training staff special, right? And we can debate that.
The
That's
Pelicans
fine.
Have
but
had some injuries this too.
But let's look at. Okay, so at the same time, they announced this revolutionary plan for a medical staff with Exos Fitness, right? That falls through before the beginning of the year. They don't even get to that. But in the same press release with Aaron Nelson, they announced that, right? So then they hire a training staff later in the summer, and you don't really hear much about it. But that's not it, right? I also learned they fired Tom Carter, the team doctor that had been with the team for years, right? And they hire a guy. I'm not going to say his name. They hire a guy right around the same time that they fire Carter, right around the same time they let Aaron Nelson go, and they let him go by the middle of July, and now they have a group of team doctors, right? So to me, you look at this and you got to wonder, is that why we're seeing prolonged injuries? It's not about guys not getting injured. In the NBA, in an 82-game season, the grind, guys are going to get injured. But it's about how fast does your medical staff get them back on the court and healthy? And that's where the Suns group has been lacking. You look at it, and we see day-to-day for a lot of guys, the Aaron Baines of the world and stuff, and the Cam Johnsons. But then it lingers, and it's taking weeks, and you wonder, why is that? What is going on that they are incapable of getting these guys back on the court? Are they just lying when they're saying day to day? Which I don't want to accuse anybody of point blank lying. I doubt that. But what is causing these injuries to linger? And to me, I look at those changes and I wonder, how much did that impact it? How much is that causing these injuries to be prolonged, which then is making this bench be very, very thin and causing these starters to have to play so many minutes that it becomes daunting to try to close out games because you're exhausted by that point. All of this plays into it. And that's what I wonder, because it's frustrating that you're so damn close to a playoff spot and that it feels like you're so far because of these factors. And that's what I wonder about all of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this has been an unusual number of lingering injuries, a number of players who can't get back from lingering injuries for sure. And look, I don't want to take anything away from how hard these kids work in trying to do the rehab and all that, and the trainers on staff. But the fact is, the Suns, as you said, Greg, didn't even have a training staff until just before the season, and then that training staff is inexperienced. They haven't worked together as a team before. And they only had a few years in the NBA at various teams in positions before this. So I think they were put behind the eight ball by the Suns as well. So I don't want to call out that we have bad trainers. I just want to say that they were put in a bad position to succeed for sure. And like you said, Greg, the team doctor issue, I hadn't even heard about that. I did notice I haven't seen Thomas Carter around this year. And
you know why.
Well, that doesn't mean he was great, and that doesn't mean Aaron Nelson would have been better this year. It just means that they were not put into position to succeed, and that's a bad thing.
And that's my point. It's more of the chaos of the situation, not necessarily the pieces in it. I'm not saying this is a bad training staff. I'm just saying it's a younger training staff. It's a group that didn't get put together until a certain point, and then the doctor situation is weird. So it's just this kind of upheaval that's a little weird, and then you add the lingering injuries. Again, people get injured. It's how fast you get them back on the court is the and healthy back on the court. That's the important part of it for a training staff.
I do want to take a moment to thank a listener. And if you're watching the YouTube show right now, if you're listening to the podcast and you feel like you get something out of the show and you want to support, you can open up the show notes. There's a support the show button. And we did get a new supporter, Eric Fleury, who did the $10 a month option. You don't have to do the $10 a month option. If you do, though, I will personally send you some Sun swag. So, Eric, thank you so very much. Hit us up on Twitter. Let me know your address because it's not going to tell me where to send it. And I'll get that swag out to you this week.
And to our supporters, soon we will be launching a new platform. We're going to get a little extra if you're supporting the show. So look forward to that. And excited to tell you more when we can. Also excited to announce that Rhett Reese and I are co-producing a movie. The writer of co-writer of Deadpool and producer of Deadpool. We're going to be producing Return to Bender Island. If the Bucks cut him, we'll be attempting to get him back to Phoenix. And the point Ben.
Rumor is that the Bucks are going to sign Marvin Williams. Yep. Who's just now being bought out by the Charlotte Hornets. They already have 15 players under contract. Bender is the guy who's played the least on the team, and so he's probably going to be the one cut. That's our speculation.
Point Bender, baby. Return to Bender Island. Co-produced by Espo and Red Reese. Get ready for it, people.
He's got some cool facial hair this year, so maybe he's a better player.
He's evil Dragon. And,
shout out to Max on the YouTube chat for letting me know that it is not pronounced swag, but swag.
Max Hunter,
really?
if anybody's wondering.
Not the first person to point that out to me. Apparently, I just can't pronounce anything. So let's talk about the Suns trade deadline. What is worse? First off, I want to ask you guys this question: what is worse on trade deadline day? Dealing with the rumors that never happened, or having to comb through roughly 200 fan-created trades on the trade machine, asking for your opinion?
Oh, the trade machine stuff, because everybody's like, hey, we can get LeBron if we do Tyler Johnson, a pick, and a few other pieces that we don't want. Like, what do you think, man? Who says no? And you're like, everybody says no. Logic says no. All right. I think that's worse than anything.
It was a weird trade deadline. I think with me, I was more interested in the Suns doing things on the margins and getting a little bit better backup point guard to go run behind Ricky Rubio. Rubio's clearly hobbling and needs a little bit of time off, and Elie Okobo is not ready to play big minutes, and none of these guys are. And so I was hoping the Suns would do something like that. I was not looking for a remaking of the team or anything like that. I did not want Kelly Oubre traded. I didn't want any big things, didn't need big things to happen. Of course, if big things happen, sometimes that's good, but definitely I didn't need any panic trades. I didn't want to see anything like that. What I was hoping to see was something on the margins, something that would help you actually with, the point guard situation. Even when people are healthy, there's still a problem at point guard.
Look, you gave me crap on Twitter, Dave, about being upset at the deadline. And the irony of it is, I wanted the same thing you wanted. I did not want some major move that mortgaged the future. I wanted to see something that bolstered your bench.
It was just you yelling into the void.
Look,
that's what I was giving you crap over.
that to me, that is the mistake here. Because as we just talked about, you're within shouting distance of this 8th spot. I don't think it's going to be any easier in the next 3 or 4 years to get in the Western Conference playoff picture than it is this year. And you could have done it by, over the last 2 weeks, messing at the margins, trying to find backup point guard, maybe somebody that can bolster the power forward position. Even you go back as far as when Ayton was out during the suspension and you had that roster exception, getting somebody that could have played more backup center, so Frank Kaminsky could have played more backup power forward. There's just these little things that I wish you could have done, and it goes back to that stench. You're not going to get rid of that losing stench if you don't get into the playoffs. And I did not want them to mess with their chance in the next 2 or 3 years to be really good to do it, but you could have done small things that to help that. And the fact that they did not move Tyler Johnson's expiring strikes me as odd, and I get it. There's probably not a lot of teams that were looking to necessarily clear cap space for this summer because it's a weaker free agent class. So maybe that played part in it, but you look at it and you wonder, was standing pat really what you wanted to do, or what was the best move to do if you believed in these guys and their chance at the 8th seed this year? And I think just making those little moves makes a guy like Devin Booker go, look, they want to get me help. They want to try to bolster this bench because we believe we can do this, and now I know James Jones believes we can because they're putting guys on this bench to give us help, right? I get injuries, yada, yada. Those guys will come back, but they're not here right now. They're not helping this team close that gap. So if they could have brought in guys at a low cost, which there were guys around the league that got dealt for a low cost that could have helped, they should have, and that's my problem. Yeah, why don't we go over those guys?
So, first off, I agree with you, Greg. There was a full blown thing about the Suns should have gone out and gotten D'Lo and
Wait, I'm the one who said it first. Why are you saying you agree with Greg? Small working on the margin. I said it first, then Greg said it louder, and now you're saying I agree with you, Greg. What the fuck?
He agrees with us both.
Really care that much? Okay. Like, what? Okay, I agree with you too, Dave.
Thank you. Okay, you can go.
But so there were guys that the Suns could have gotten to bolster the bench. Just really quickly, I will say that there is one bench player that has a positive net rating on the Suns, and that is Elie Okobo. But there are guys that they could have gotten out and gotten for very cheap. They could have gotten Shabazz Napier. They could have gotten McRae. They could have gotten Alex Burks. They could have gotten Glenn Robinson III. They could have gotten John Henson from the Cavs. They could have gotten Jordan Bell. These were all players that were basically given up for virtually nothing or second-round picks that might not have made huge improvements for the team, but would have made some improvement, possibly for the team, would have bolstered the bench because right now, as we've been pointing out, they got 6 injured guys. The Suns' starting lineup is not the problem. They have a positive 19-point differential net rating. The starters are not the issue, and they could have done something. There were obviously talks, though, which I do want to go over. Some of that is that they were reportedly shopping Saric for a first-round pick that they didn't receive. There was talks of Luke Kennard, which had ended up getting at an impasse because of the pick protections. Apparently, they were listening to offers on Kelly Oubre Jr. So
I heard Kelly was never on the block. People keep trying to create something out of that. Look, the telephone calls don't have a subject line on them. Okay, when your phone rings, it doesn't say only pick up if you want to trade Kelly Oubre. The phone rings, you pick up, you listen to what somebody has to say, and then you say no thanks.
Right. Listen,
Kelly Oubre was never on the block.
No. It was from what I understand, it was Orlando going, "Hey, we're interested in Kelly Oubre."
Sure, give us Aaron Gordon.
Great. Yeah. Well, even then, I don't know that I.
Even then,
yeah,
I wouldn't have actually done that.
Like
really?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that makes you all that much better to make that kind of a deal. So
this team did not need a swap for swap's sake, and that would have been a swap for swap's sake. I would get Aaron Gordon separately without any other real assets, but that's not available. But definitely, I would not have traded Kelly Oubre.
So should the Suns have lightened the protections to get Luke Kennard?
I struggle with this because he's injured right now, right? So he wasn't going to come in and help you
double
right away.
Tendinitis.
Yeah,
and that's something you generally deal with the rest of your career if you get it, or at least for a long time.
And we already have that guy. His name's Cam Johnson, who seems to have that kind of injuries that can shoot. So you don't need a second guy that's going to wind up being injury prone if you're going to have to give up a first round pick with no protections on it, or a top 1 protected, whatever. Like I think you could shop your pick before the draft this year, depending on where you wind up, and get more than Luke Kennard if you're going to go without protections.
So they shouldn't have lowered those protections.
I don't think so. Not for Kennard in this situation, because I don't think it would have helped you. And to Dave's point, those questions linger with that kind of injury.
Well, and I'm not fooling myself into thinking the Suns actually value their first round pick this year. I think they'll end up trading it anyway, but
trying to. James Jones has made some pretty pointed comments about the draft recently.
Yeah, he wants immediate proven production, not hopeful production. Of course, sometimes you get real proven production from actual rookies, but and so he's certainly getting some from Cam Johnson, but definitely and other rookies have been okay. I mean, Zion Williamson is not bad, and John Morant's not bad as a rookie.
Yeah, but who wants that?
It's rare though.
His point is that he prefers guys who are in their second, third, fourth plus years, and that's just the way it's going to be as long as he's the GM.
Yeah, and I think you're probably going to get more for that.
And having said that, the Suns are still the youngest team in the league, so James Jones doesn't go out and get 30-year-olds. He goes out and gets 23, 24-year-olds. So it's okay. It's all right.
Saric, whether or not I believe that it was Gambo that reported this. Whether or not it's true, we're going to take him at his word and just or that his source's word, we should say. Saric not in the Suns' plans for the future.
That doesn't surprise me when you look at the way this season's played out. I think they took a flyer. And he's not the answer to power forward, and that's fine. I mean, somebody will pay him. He'll wind up getting his money, but I think it makes sense to probably move on from him at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's coming back next year either. I think the Suns are going to use I haven't put together a free agent list at all. I know it's not a great free agent class. You're not going to get a star.
Well, the Suns weren't going to get a star anyway.
Right. You can certainly get a good player, and the Suns will be one of only 6 teams with significant cap space or even any cap space this summer. And so there's a lot of mid-level exceptions that are going to be going around with, I think that's around $9 million a year. And so if the Suns can offer 10, 11 to a guy they really want, the guys take the money. That's just what they do. So there are going to be some free agents available this summer that the Suns will be one of the best options for. So I think James would rather do that than he already knows Dario doesn't quite fit with the athleticism that he needs, his team needs on the team.
I'm not exactly caught up on my CBA reading, so maybe you guys can answer this for me. But with that cap space, can you absorb more salary in a trade than the matching rule? Is that allowable? Because that's
if you've got cap space, you as a receiving team can have up to a 50% differential on salaries, whereas if you're both over the cap, you can only have a 15% differential. So at the summertime, the Suns would be able to, especially if they renounce these. Now, if they keep Dario's qualifying offer and they wait for him to get an offer and stuff like that, they'll still be over the cap if they add a few of those together, if they don't let everybody's qualifying offer go. But, excuse me, but if they clear that books and they get themselves under the cap, there can be a 50% differential.
Yeah. Well, that at least then gives you the option to explore the trade market too. It's not just the free agency market that cap space is going to be able to use. And
definitely the trade market is going to be the most profitable for them for sure.
I still look at Lauri Markkanen, and as long as that injury that he's going through right now, I'd take a flyer on that because he's trying to force his way out of Chicago, so I'm guessing it's not going to be a huge amount that you're going to have to send back in that situation, and it's the kind of low risk, high reward that you're going to have to take here to try to fill some of these holes and to put this team over the top, and I'd be all right with that. You know, at worst, I think you're getting a younger, slightly more talented Frank Kaminsky, and at best, you're getting the guy that everybody thought was going to be a star when he came out first with Chicago. So, I'd like to see a flyer on a guy like that.
That is, it was, I mean, we don't know who they were or weren't talking to. You know, a lot of conversations have to happen in order for a trade to end up happening, but I would be surprised, right, if they didn't at least inquire about Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, they should, for sure.
Or if they didn't.
They should look into all these. Yeah. Well, they probably are looking, I don't know. We don't know, do we? Nothing came out about that.
By the way, can we stop the panic that Devin Booker is pulling the ripcord on his time in Phoenix?
How many times
already?
in a row does he need to say how much he wants to stay here, and people just keep putting words in his mouth?
Yeah, this is like the person in a relationship that has to keep going back and going, "Do you actually love me? Do you really want to be here?" And eventually, you keep asking that enough, and the person goes, "You know what? Maybe I don't want to be here. Maybe you're right."
Seriously.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you keep asking.
Right.
Eventually, they're going to go, "Yeah, you're right."
You, I don't think, Greg, but somebody on Twitter was saying the Suns fans should be more like Lakers fans.
I would never say that. Don't you
Okay,
worry.
well, okay. So somebody was saying Suns fans are so into Devin should insist on leaving, blah, blah, blah. The Suns fans should be more like Lakers fans with Kobe, you know, going, F you, he's the greatest player. He's never leaving, you know, be totally loyal to him instead of trying to will him away.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter how bad your organization is. Keep your best players, period.
No.
Don't wish them to go somewhere else. Stop wishing they'll want to go somewhere else. It's like, Jesus, just enjoy your best players, be happy with your best players, and then turn on them when they want to leave. But don't want them to leave. That's ridiculous.
And I'd be fine. Don't get me wrong. I'd be fine with Devin going and putting some pressure on ownership to get him help. I have no problem with that. But I'm not sitting here saying he should demand that he get traded and he's going to leave, which will bring us to our Dunc-y award. You want me to do that right now? Because it ties into this.
Wait. Let's,
okay.
I got a couple of comments just on the 2020 free agency.
Go for it.
I know it's supposed to be it is a really bad class. There aren't any stars in there. There's not even a really deep pool of good players, even good players. But I will say, with the Suns being one of the few teams with any kind of cap space so they can make free agent offers and even restricted free agent offers, $25 million. They're one of 6 teams with about that much or more space. There are going to be guys out there like Fred VanVleet, Montrezl Harrell, Danilo Gallinari, Joe Harris, Bogdan Bogdanovic. And so you've got some guys, and plus there's several others that I didn't even come up with in this couple of minutes. But there will be good players as long as. But if you want somebody better than DeAndre Ayton, for example, to be your 1A next to Booker, or better than Kelly Oubre, that's going to have to come via trade.
Yep, and you're gonna have to decide of those free agent names what's the real fit too, because there are some guys that are talented, but do they fit the roster? I mean, we've talked about how Bogdan would or wouldn't fit. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. I mean, there's going to be a lot of question marks. You're going to have to figure out a lot, and that's why James Jones gets paid. He's going to have to.
Can we spend
make the right choices.
2 minutes? Can we spend 2 minutes talking about our favorite possible trade acquisition in Deangelo Russell?
Sure, yeah, I mean,
so Deangelo Russell was traded twice in the past 9 months. He did make the All-Star game last year, and since making the All-Star game last year, has been traded twice in the last 9 months. Some of that is not his fault. A lot of that's not his fault. I'm not going to blame him for getting traded. However, Steve Kerr did bluntly say, and he said, I'll be blunt, he wasn't a good fit on the Warriors. And I've heard in background music here that he showed up to the Warriors already knowing everything and not needing to be coached at all, with not the best attitude as far as coachability. And the Warriors especially are a team that they really know what they're doing, and you can't go in there saying you already do. And so he wasn't a good fit. And Kurt did mention, usually coaches don't say that actually in public after a player's been traded. They say, we love his time here. We loved him. No, he goes, yeah, to be blunt, he wasn't the best fit. And he was kind of traded for a bag of beans, which everybody was saying, oh, the Suns should have jumped in there to get Deangelo Russell on the Suns. But you know what? Maybe I still have PTSD from the Morris brothers being reunited. I probably do, and I'm probably overblowing this, but I don't think the best situation for Deangelo Russell is to have been put next to his best friend. And I don't know how it's going to work out in Minnesota, but I don't think they're going to win a lot of games with just that tandem. They're going to need somebody else or some other group of players on their team to be the difference between winning and losing. I don't think those two by themselves can prop up a franchise.
Look, Deangelo Russell is not worth what he's getting paid. If you put him next to Devin Booker, he's getting paid what Devin Booker is, right? So then you've got 2 max contracts in your backcourt. It's just not the right way to build this team. And to Dave's point, putting friends together doesn't always work. We're going to find out in Minnesota that is friendship more important than winning, because if these guys don't win, you can't tell me Karl Anthony Towns isn't going to want out of Minnesota. He was getting to that point in kind of pushing for this trade for D'Lo. Friendship's nice, but winning is what matters in this league in the long run. And if they're not doing it, it's not going to matter. And I just think it would have been short-sighted to try to add D'Lo to this roster, especially when you look at it. If you're going to do it, it would have been the offseason that you should have done it in, because now you wouldn't have traded him, because then you would have had Ricky Rubio or him having to come off the bench. You would have had all this money in your backcourt, which would have tied you up to not be able to fix the issues at power forward and other areas you have. It just would not have been the right fit, and I don't think it was the right fit in the offseason. I think James Jones made the smart move and not going after D'Lo. And Steve Kerr is a fairly nice man. That's probably pretty biting for him to say he wasn't a fit. All right, that's pretty damning to me.
Shout out to Dan in the YouTube chat. Booker playing alongside D'Lo, good thing for Kentucky fans, but it isn't a good thing for the team. Oubre is a better fit, and I'm going to credit both of you guys with this before, because I don't want Dave to get upset. But the saloon door on the defensive end of a backcourt that is Devin Booker and D'Lo is, you can't do that with that kind of money wrapped up into a backcourt. You cannot win that way.
And let me tamp out another fire. just because Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns' agent will be the president of the Knicks soon does not mean that they're going to New York. The only threat the Knicks pose is to themselves and their fans. If there's an organization that I trust less to do the right thing than the Phoenix Suns, it's the New York Knicks. So you do not have to worry about the Knicks being some threat to getting Devin Booker. So don't worry about that. Put that one aside.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about the Knicks, and I'm not actually worried about the Timberwolves because you simply can't have 3 max players. It just doesn't work with the salary cap. I know teams have tried it. There's some of the best teams have gotten 3 to 4 max players on their team, including Golden State Warriors, but that's not really the most sustainable way to build a team, especially when you're not already at championship. I don't see the Timberwolves making it work to fit, like have a Devin Booker on there, where the Suns would actually have an acceptable trade package they'd want to accept. So I don't worry about Minnesota, and I don't worry about New York. What I worry about is someone like the Lakers, because Devin Booker has never said he hates or loves the Lakers at all. He loved Kobe Bryant. He's totally all about Kobe Bryant. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of these days he says he wants to go to LA. That's my biggest worry. But I love the fact that he has never said anything negative about the Suns, always wanted to play for the Suns, still wants to play for the Suns, and wants to play for the rest of his career with the Suns. So let's just enjoy that and stop wishing him away, please.
And just get him help. Keep building around him. Keep getting him pieces. That's the bottom line. Would you like the Dunc-y award now? Because it ties in.
It is Dunc-y time.
All right. I was going to start and announce our first ever Ring of Dishonor inductees this week, but I'm going to save that for next week. We will have a Ring of Dishonor Sun Solar Panel inductees. Just wait. You will love to hear who's going to make this cut. Maybe we'll even put it up behind me here in the home studio. But today, our Dunc-y Award winner.
Wait, so you're on the Ring of Dishonor because your name is up there?
Maybe I am. It depends on who you ask over at the organization too. But so this week's Dunc-y Award winner is it's Greg on Greg crime today, as I'm giving the Dunc-y Award to Greg Moore over at AZ Central, the columnist there, right? So let me take you back. We're going to get in the Wayback Machine. We're going to the March 27th, 2019, right? And this is a tweet of a Greg Moore column saying, Stephen A. Smith says Devin Booker should want out of Phoenix already. Greg Moore says Smith is wrong, right? Keep that in mind. Fast forward to 2 days ago, or actually I believe this was yesterday, Greg Moore saying, subscribers only, but I'm never wrong about stuff like this, so you might want to get your wallet out. Headline, Phoenix Suns fans should get ready to say goodbye to Devin Booker. Seriously? You contradicted yourself in less than a year, Greg Moore. And what in the world makes you think you're some expert on what the hell Devin Booker wants, okay? If he's sitting here telling the public that he's happy, that none of these insider sources have had anything that says that Devin Booker is asking out. I've talked to people that were inside the organization and the front office, and none of them have said he's ever asked out or insinuated that. Why the hell do you think you know anything better? And if you're always right, you're never wrong about this stuff, then why did you say Stephen A. Smith was wrong less than a year ago, and then yesterday say that you know everything and agreed with Stephen A. Smith? Greg,
look,
you're getting the Dunc-y.
I've sat next to Greg. Okay, I've sat next to Greg for the past couple of years. Off and on, he come to games, and he's a super nice guy. I don't have the access behind the paywall at AZ Central. I'm sorry, guys, I just don't. I have too many other things going, and so I don't know what it says inside that article. But it is clickbait, and he actually, I think he was joking when he said I'm never wrong. But still, it's a clickbaity title, which I don't love. I don't love clickbaity titles.
He's the king of
and
clickbait.
Who knows what he says
there.
Actually inside there? But yeah, I think he was even laughing at his own take on that.
To me, that makes it worse. If you're not buying into the take, if you're just writing this stuff to write it to try to get people to click, that makes it worse. Yeah, clickbait drives me nuts, and it's the bane of this industry right now. And it's sad again it's the way that business is being done. Like you write a quality piece about a quality opinion you actually believe in, rather than trying to come up with a clickbait topic that's going to get people riled up. It's ridiculous. Greg's not making the Ring of Dishonor, by the way. He's not.
I thought you were gonna go with somebody else this week.
He's making it in the Ring of
Tim's
Dishonor.
all confused.
I am. I'm a bit
because before the game we talked about somebody else.
I ground
what we
gears.
talked about is tell us who we were talking about.
No,
Greg, so people don't speculate as them.
He's going to make the Ring of Dishonor next week, and I didn't want to waste it. We got to properly honor somebody like that.
Tease it at least. He's one that everyone loves to hate.
So
great, that really clears it up.
So after Greg's Dunc-y, do we then have to vote on whether or not they make the Ring of Dishonor?
I think we should have to do that. Do they make?
There's got to be a unanimous vote, actually.
And look, don't worry. I'm not inducting anybody from another podcast into the Ring of Dishonor if that's what anybody's concerned about. So
I will.
You don't need to keep talking about podcasts.
You said you were worried that my obscure way of saying that was going to offend somebody, so I'm just making it clear. All right. I'm petty. What do you want? All right.
We don't need to keep bringing up other podcasts.
I didn't.
Unless
you did. You did.
I mean, Greg or Dave, he is right.
What?
He is right.
No, he's not. I did not bring up.
But he is right.
Oh God, he's about as right as Greg Moore is on his takes and clickbait articles.
All right, and on that note, we are out of here. So for Dave, Espo, and myself, we will see you guys next Saturday and every Saturday. Well, most Saturdays anyway, at 7 o'clock.
And sometimes Sundays.
Hey, donate so Tim can pay off his Vegas bills and get new glasses. That's the only reason we do this show. So please help Tim out.
Eric, if you're listening, hit us up on Twitter so I can send you some Suns swag.
Peace.